Hello, and welcome to another installment of DeKalb Talks Tourism. We are excited today to have a homegrown Georgia Doc Lawrence from Stone Mountain. Welcome.
James, delighted to be here, and it's always good to be in my home county.
Well, tell us about yourself. Where'd you come from? What are you doing right now?
I came into this planet about 3 blocks north of the Fox Theater. I was actually born on Peachtree Street at Crawford Long Hospital, which is now Emory Midtown. The building's still there, and I'm obviously an Atlanta native. Grew up in Decatur. Most of my life has been in DeKalb County, and I've been blessed with a rich life, a good life, and I got to know a lot of people, and my heart is here right now. This is home. This is where I've lived, and this is where I'll depart someday, later.
So definitely later, how many people do you think are actually born here in Atlanta? It just seems like most of us are transplants.
No one. It's just when Sam Massell died a year or so ago, I thought to myself, gee, I may be the missing link now between yesterday and today. No, there's quite a few, actually. Atlanta's grown. DeKalb's grown. The population here is mind-boggling. It's so vast.
Yeah.
We're big time now.
Well, I've been here 12 and a half years, and I kind of almost feel like I'm from Atlanta. I've been here long enough.
It seems like you have been here much longer than that.
Doesn't it? I don't know if that's good or bad, but yes.
That's very good. I think you've been very part and parcel of the growth. To me, the image of DeKalb County has soared under your tutelage.
Well, thank you.
I really commend you for that.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, let's dive right into it. You know, we've talked about your background, but you have a screenplay you're doing.
Well, yeah. May I tell you briefly the story?
Sure, we love that.
Well, it involves Dr. King. It's probably the most original, unpublished, unknown story about him that I'm aware of. And the DeKalb connection is that this gentleman, Jim Sanders, who got 2 degrees from Emory University. He got a master's and a bachelor's in English. He later fought in World War II, was severely wounded, came back, and went to France, bought a bicycle, and he toured the French countryside, aimless, I think, looking for something to do. Came back to Atlanta, and he became a restaurateur, and he opened up Georgia's first fine wine store, which was near the Georgia State Capitol. Jim Sanders later went on to expand into many stores. He became Georgia's top wine importer. Atlanta's pioneer restaurateur. The top of Peachtree, which predates you but doesn't predate me, was a signature restaurant. It was Atlanta's perhaps first fine dining establishment in every sense of the word. New York quality, San Francisco quality. And leading up to this story, Mr. Sanders was very, very, very politically active, and he had friends everywhere. You make friends when you sell wine, I found out.
I would think so.
And he had a store that was near the Georgia State Capitol, as on MLK, which was then Hunter Street. And he had the former governor of Georgia, Marvin Griffin, an arch segregationist, Ralph McGill, the Pulitzer Prize-winning liberal editor of the Atlanta Constitution, and himself in a back alcove in his store, drinking wine, eating food, and these were people that really didn't like each other very much. Mr. Sanders did, but McGill and Griffin were enemies. And the story goes that they saw this distinguished-looking black gentleman walk in, and he was shopping for something, obviously looking for something that was hard to find. Mr. Sanders went out, recognized him as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., introduced himself, helped him pick out a bottle of wine for his anniversary, which he was celebrating at home that night, and invited him to come back. And he introduced him to, he said, the story he gave me, he said, you could cut the tension with a knife. He saw Governor Griffin and literally froze in his tracks. They were mortal enemies. Griffin was an arch segregationist, a man who had openly ridiculed King and the civil rights movement. Mr. McGill was a dear friend of his. He probably wondered what they were doing together. They were drinking wine. Mr. Sanders invited him to sit down and enjoy some wine, and he surprisingly agreed to do it.
Wow.
They poured wine, they ate snacks, they began telling stories, as Southerners do.
Yeah.
And it turned out that they had common interests. They knew certain old country preachers in South Georgia together. They knew certain stories. They knew certain folk ways, food ways that they shared. And after a bottle or so of French wine, the tension disappeared. And they were laughing, cutting up, and telling jokes and sharing stories. And in the story that was given to me by Mr. Sanders, Dr. King revealed that he had traveled the French countryside himself. When he went to school in Boston, he had many friends who were quite sophisticated, and he became, the worldly side of him developed a great deal. With his Boston experience, he was familiar with many of these things. He among the group there, with the exception of Mr. Sanders, probably knew more about the subject matter than anybody did, which surprised everyone. And long story short, at the end, they were shaking hands and laughing. The last scene that Mr. Sanders recalls was Governor Griffin and Dr. King, enemies, under an umbrella, waiting on Dr. King's ride to come pick him up, to take him home. Dr. King holding a bottle of French champagne in one arm, and the rain cascading on the umbrella, and they were laughing. And Sanders writes in the story he gave me that he wondered what in the world would have been the difference in this country had they met a few years beforehand. And he remembered them both all saying, we need to get together and do this again sometime. Well, it never happened. Dr. King tragically was assassinated. Griffin went on to run for vice president with George Wallace on the American Independent ticket, and then later died. Mr. McGill, the greatest newspaper man that this region ever had, died of a heart attack some years later. So it never happened again. So when Sanders was taken ill in his last days of his life, he summoned me to his hospital room, and at the same hospital that I was born in, by the way.
Oh.
And he gave me the transcript. Sanders was a great writer. He had typed the story out that night when he got home. He knew history was there, and he gave it to me, and he said, don't let this story die. Promise me you'll do something with it. I have kept my promise. I've written about it. I've had my own radio show some years back in Atlanta, and I did a broadcast on it. I put it online and YouTube. People picked it up and contacted me, and I connected with a young man named Noah Washington, who he shared with me that he was Booker T. Washington's great-great-great-grandson.
Wow.
And he's a charming man, a talented man. And we talked about taking this to a screenplay for a movie, producing it here in Atlanta. We've done a lot of work on it. The writer's strike has interfered with everything now. First it was COVID, and now this thing. But it will be done, and it will be done here in Atlanta. Hopefully we'll do a lot of it in DeKalb County.
Yeah, we love that. It's such a
I don't
great
see any
story.
reason why we can't do it.
True. Great story. I was going to ask you, what are you doing with it? So you've already answered that question. So it's very interesting. You've had it all these years,
Yeah.
and you have talked about it. You've written about it, but now really coming down to a screenplay would be awesome.
Well, it's not going to die. I'm going to keep my word. And I, I've shared the story. I gave a copy of the transcript to Boston University. It's in their library. Boston University has a library on viticulture, on wine. It's one of the few in the world.
Wow.
And they did not know this side of King, that this preacher from Atlanta, this revolutionary from Atlanta who believed in peace, a follower of Jesus Christ, a man who transformed the world, and particularly America and the American South, had this side to him of sophistication. So I gave it to the director of their Viticulture Institute some years back, and they have it there themselves. I'm glad to share it with everybody. It's a wonderful story. It makes me proud as an Atlantan and as a DeKalb native to have been asked to share this story with the world and to keep it alive.
I believe I was listening to you actually reading the transcripts. I think
Yeah,
we
I
had a
did.
tape of you reading it.
I did. It was on my old radio show.
Yeah. That was very cool. I listened to it before you all coming on today. So that was very neat. So what other type of things are you producing?
Well, that's the only project that I'm doing in film. That's really more than enough. If I get that done, that will be a life's venture, well invested. I'll be very proud to have kept my word to Mr. Sanders. Let me say one more thing about Jim Sanders. Jim was an educator. He had classes on wine at his Buckhead store here in Atlanta, and he had senators, Supreme Court justices, governors, congressmen, housewives, engineers, doctors. He used to say that the safest place in the United States to have a heart attack on a Saturday afternoon was his store because it was packed with cardiologists.
There you go.
And I took his course there, and what I know about wine, I learned from him, and the rest was just trial and error.
So did that start you doing the wine story?
It absolutely did. It absolutely did.
So tell us a bit about that. What some of the different stories you write, and
Well, for 14 years I wrote a column for the now defunct Piedmont Review here in Atlanta. Circulation encompassed all of DeKalb as well, and it was called Sips Along the Way. I write about wine with the perspective of promoting its enjoyment. It's a beverage that should be enjoyed with meals. It should be part of the hospitality regimen. Its proper role is politeness, generosity, things that to me define us as Southerners and make us a very special breed of people here in the country. I write wine columns still for numerous magazines throughout the country. And until about a year ago, I had a podcast with Marilyn Ball out of Asheville, North Carolina, that included weekly reviews of wine, dining with wine, restaurants, and the like. And I still manage to slip it in articles all I possibly can.
so did you do it here? Did you go up there to do the podcast, or were you doing it online? How were you doing it?
We did it with a microphone in my studio at home, and with Marilyn in her studio in Asheville. The rest is beyond my capabilities to describe. I know as much about that as I do what this microphone is.
Well, that's like we have Monica here. She handles all that for us.
Yes, indeed, and she did a great job, I think.
She is. So let's talk about I kind of think you started, your favorite topic is wine and food.
Well, reverse that. It probably would be food.
Okay.
I have found this to be surprising to me. If I write about food, the response is 100 times more than anything else.
Well, everybody eats.
Everybody eats.
Everybody doesn't drink wine.
No, they don't. Food crosses all of the barriers. It connects everything. And food's a favorite subject. If you're from the South and you ain't talking about food, you're not really from here.
Yeah, that's true. That's the thing with DeKalb. I mean, we were very lucky to have very southern-related places, but then we also have Buford Highway with the international culture and international dining that spans, 3 cities and into Gwinnett. So we have a lot of, our downtowns are very unique places, and we have a very vibrant brew pub scene in DeKalb County. So we really got a lot of great food and food options.
I know of no equal, no counterpart to the what they call the Buford Highway corridor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many countries are represented in that the restaurant cuisine, but it must be a mighty number of them. I can't think of a country right offhand that's not represented there.
That's true.
Is there a Russian restaurant there? There used to be.
My wife should know. I cannot think of a Russian place, though. You can definitely think of all the different Asians and
well, there's a vibrant Russian community here in DeKalb County.
Yes,
and as there are, I'm not in the least interested in politics, but there's a Ukrainian community also, and that's how DeKalb to me is diversity. It is the bellwether in this state, perhaps in the entire South, of diversity.
Well, Chambly just recently picked up a Ukraine city that's a sister city for the city of Chambly.
Well, that's wonderful. What great news. I'm glad you shared that, Jay.
And then they were actually, Mayor Mock and Chambly was doing a book drive to send books over to the city's library from over here. They needed American books. So he did a big book drive sending books over there.
That's such great news. But, I like to write about, and most of my experience is in writing.
Right.
Not only food and wine, but folkways, the arts. The arts. You could spend a week talking about that here. I live in Stone Mountain Art Station.
Right.
Is a crown jewel. One of the best kept secrets in the entire state of Georgia is Art Station.
Well, I have to say, with Art Station, I'm so excited they're bringing back the tour of Southern Ghosts.
Oh, they are, yeah. And David Thomas is one of the heroes of my lifetime.
Yeah, David's great, and Michael.
Yes, they are. Their art gallery there is not only commendable, but it has very few counterparts. I don't know of anything right offhand that is open almost all the time that has that type of selection, that type of presentation, that does more for the visual arts than their gallery does. And, of course, then they got the stage for their live theater.
And they do some great productions throughout the year.
I don't think I've ever missed a performance there.
Yeah.
Even when I had a newspaper in Florida, I would come up to see each premiere of each production and write about it in South Florida.
Well, you were talking art again and tying in art with culinary or alcohol, I guess you can do it, there's a place in Chambly called Distillery of Modern Art. And they actually make bourbons and gins and vodkas and peach vodka. But then while you're there, you can tour. They have art throughout the building.
Yeah.
They actually had artists create the label for each individual bottle that they have. They bring in different exhibits throughout the month. And, they have small, like, tapas type meals with your bourbon or your gin or whatever. It's very much an exhibit hall, an art center, local artists, restaurant. So it's a very cool place. It ties in with what you were talking about.
Well, see, you've given me a new article to write. They owe you a fee for your promotions.
So what do you got pulling up here? Oh, the Distillery of Modern Art. Okay, so it's right here. And that, He started out wanting to do bourbon, but it takes too long. So then he did gin and vodka and things like that.
Well, why not?
And then wanted to be kind of a artist, so he tied that in. Wanted to be a place for events, tied that in. It's all thrown into this one restaurant downtown Chamblee. So it's a very cool place to go.
Well, that's a good use of space, I think.
Yeah.
I've never really understood why you couldn't do all those things at once. I think it's a trend. Even though it's not in DeKalb, their founders of DeKalbite, Tom Key, theatrical outfit in downtown Atlanta, they've now diversified. They have event space, their theater, which is their primary reason for being in existence, with a bar, with a restaurant, with music, live music, and to me, that's a good use of space.
We know ArtStation kind of does that too. When you were talking,
ArtStation really might have pioneered that.
yeah, because they have the little bar area, they have the little
cabaret.
they have the theater, the arts, the gift shop, the upstairs rooms. I mean, they've kind of right. They've done the same thing,
and they've really done that on a shoestring. They've done that with when they've been around a long time.
Yeah,
they're almost as old as me. Nobody's older than me.
That was older than you.
No
Okay.
one. That's it. But they've been around a long time, and I've seen them progress. I can recall when there was no counterpart to ArtStation anywhere. They were in the state.
Wow.
No one was doing what they were doing, and that's the vision of David Thomas and his partner Michael Hidalgo. They have done wonders there.
Yes.
They would be, if you ask me who has been the most influential arts pioneers in the state today, it would be them. It would be ArtStation in its current leadership. They've done more with less. They've done more with vision. That's been money well spent. There's historical preservation,
Right.
and there's contemporary and daring as they could possibly be.
That's true.
And they've changed my community for the better.
Yeah.
We're a much better city because of them. We're a much better county because of them.
I agree. Well, let's switch gears. How do you come up with your stories?
Fear.
Fear.
If you can't think of one, something's really wrong. I don't have any trouble with that. I enjoy people. I enjoy the arts. I enjoy sports. I enjoy food. I enjoy wine. I enjoy people. And everybody has a story.
True.
If you get to know a perfect stranger, I don't care what their station is in life. If you get to know them, there is a great story there. They may be the cook you never dreamed of you could ever cross paths with. They may serve a meal that you never believed was possible. Who knows? If you don't give them a chance, you've missed a real opportunity. I like people, like personalities. One of my favorite subjects that you brought it up is a wonderful gentleman, a lovely man, James Page. James owns the Collard Green Cafe down on Stone Mountain Industrial Boulevard.
Okay.
And James is a Savannah native. He's been in DeKalb many, many years. The Collard Green Cafe has been, the first time I ran into him was many years ago in Toco Hill. And the rent got high, and he moved again, and moved again. So he's now really just a little ways from here. James was a cook in the Marine Corps.
Oh.
Yeah, in Camp Pendleton, California. He was in charge of feeding 6,000 Marines 3 meals a day for several years. You learn to cook when you do that.
That's true.
He came from Savannah. He had that wonderful coastal knowledge of seafood, fried foods, of whatever.
Right.
And he took his dream, and he has fought and struggled to stay ahead. during hard times and during good times. Now I think he's made it. And it's a pleasure to write about him. I wrote about him, within the past year, but I've written several articles about him. I love him as a person, as a cook. He's a friendly man. His love of his son is beyond anything I've ever seen in my life. He's a model daddy.
You say it's called the Collard Green Cafe?
Collard Green Cafe.
I have to remember that.
Oh, listen.
I'm always into new places.
Well, now it's soul food that others would call country cooking.
Uh-huh.
It's the same exact thing.
Right.
But if you want fried chicken, if you want barbecue, if you want fresh vegetables, James is the place to go to.
Monica, I'm hungry.
And he's such a decent man as well. Well, that's a good example right there. I met him accidentally. We became friends by accident. And you never know exactly what's in that package of a human being.
Make a reservation. We can do that now. But I'm glad you brought that up. I'm always into new restaurants.
He's your neighbor. He's really close by here.
Very cool.
Everybody tell James that Doc sent you.
Doc sent me.
Because who knows, you might get a whopping discount.
There you go.
At least an extra piece of chicken.
Yeah, well, that's worth it. What is your favorite? You've written about all these places. You've been all these places. What's your favorite travel destination?
New Orleans.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I've always. Somebody asked me. A stranger asked me, who contacted me by email in France yesterday. A similar question. He said, "What? When I come to the United States, I plan to visit you in New Orleans." And I said, "Well, I don't live in New Orleans. I live in Atlanta, but my heart's in New Orleans. I've always enjoyed it there. I visited there as a child. Actually, I was in college, and I always felt like that I could be me there. I don't know how to explain that, but I didn't feel like it mattered how I dressed, where my hair was combed, whether I'd taken a shower or not, that no one really cared who you were. No one really gave a hoot about your preferences, about your education, your status, your class, your wealth, your poverty there. I've never been to any place like it.
I was going to say, is there another city that you would rank second then?
Yeah, I'd rank New York second.
L.A., from small southern to huge.
There's a lot in common there, though. There really is. The multicultural populations. And I'll say this. I see DeKalb transforming into that. I see that another 50 years from now, who knows, one of my great-great-grandchildren might say, "I'm always going to stay here. This is where I feel comfortable." DeKalb has that potential. If you're not multicultural here, you're lost.
Yeah, you're right, because we are one of the most multicultural areas in the country, or in Georgia. We have the food that follows it. We have, the events and activities. So it's really a great place to be and visit just because of the multicultural international flair that we have.
That's a strength. It's a lure. I think when you share that story, and I've just got my next writing idea right now. The multicultural center of the South is at DeKalb County. I could easily write about that. And you can make a great case for it.
Well, we'd love to share that if you write that.
Let's do it. It's a deal. It's a deal.
Because it's like, who was it? Anthony Bourdain loved coming and writing about Buford Highway. Just the international part of it.
I loved him, and I miss him. What a loss. What a loss for such a delightful, handsome, articulate, talented man to be missing from this planet now. And I agree with you.
So switching, it made me think about, what do you think of the Michelin stars coming to Atlanta?
Well, I think it's wonderful. Now, I'm not all that familiar with it.
Not yet. I don't either, but I just know it's coming.
I know what it is, of course. I digress a little bit. I had the honor of interviewing Thomas Keller at the Michelin facility up in Spartanburg, South Carolina, a few years back, and he may have the highest rated Michelin restaurant in the United States, and the French Laundry in Napa.
Wow.
He's quite a guy, and an easy interview, by the way, just as relaxed as he can be. I've eaten there. Bring money if you ever do it.
That's what I've heard.
They do not give it away.
Yes, but I've heard it's very expensive but very worthwhile.
It's an experience.
Yeah.
If you go to France, you go to see the Louvre and Notre Dame. If you go to England, you go to see Big Ben, cross the bridge, see Buckingham Palace, Windsor Palace. Sure, you will.
I was there and the Queen didn't come out and wave. I just don't understand. It was several years ago.
Bless her heart. Well, maybe when you go back, the King will.
Yes. See if Charles comes out. So, do you have any other great stories? Oh, this is a good one. So, you were a judge at the Jack Daniel's World Championship Barbecue.
14 years, yeah.
14 years. What was that like?
I cannot describe it. Lynchburg, Tennessee is it's like it was created by Courier Knives. It's the village that could be in New England. It could be in rural Oregon. It could be in Upper Michigan, but it's in Tennessee.
And it's a dry county, dry city.
It is a dry
Which
county.
is funny for having Jack Daniels.
It is. And I was invited to be a judge there. And I guess it's one of the real highlights of my entire life is that opportunity and that great honor. You just don't get a seat there. You have to be certified. You have to take courses from the Kansas City Barbecue Society. They have to approve you. Or you're not going to be there judging anything.
Man, I got to get certified to eat barbecue.
Oh, now you don't have to do it to eat, but to judge it, you do. And I met the kings and the queens of barbecue on this planet. It's international.
Yeah.
I had dinner with barbecue teams from Denmark, Australia, New Zealand, Mexico, Canada, France, Belgium, Germany. You think about that a little bit. That's something we gave the world. We gave the world bourbon.
Yeah.
We gave the United States wine. You wouldn't have any of this without Thomas Jefferson. No. He brought the first great wines from Europe at his expense into Virginia. He brought them into the White House. The first wine dinners were at Monticello. The first wine dinners in the White House, which they still have to this day, were under Jefferson.
Wow. As much as I read about Jefferson, I haven't read that part.
Oh.
I knew he was into wine, but I didn't realize he was the one who brought it really to America.
He did indeed. You wouldn't have any reason to have me on your program if it wasn't for Mr. Jefferson. I do believe that. He made all the, and plus he was a great proponent of the arts. The things we're talking about are very Jeffersonian.
Well, Monica, we need to get the guy that portrays Thomas Jefferson from Williamsburg and get him on our show. Talk about wine.
Well, there are plenty of people here in Atlanta that could do that, in DeKalb County in particular.
Oh, that would be very cool.
Oh yeah. Well, Jim Sanders was a Jeffersonian. The great restaurateur. He would fit Jefferson's model of an American to a T. In every sense of the word, he would have.
Interesting.
But they're around, and that's if I had to pick out an American that would have the greatest influence on me, it would be Mr. Jefferson.
Very cool. So Mr. Jefferson, Mr. Sanders, so wine. That's very neat. So when's the last time you did the barbecue? It was a few years ago?
Yeah. COVID threw a curveball at it for a couple of years.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I made the decision to semi-retire from it. After 14 years, I felt like I had very little to contribute from that point on. I can write about it from memory. But the friends I made there, I stayed in contact with them anyway through email, through social networks, through telephone conversations. and they are among the best of the best of the best.
Wow, that's very true. So, what would you tell someone that wants to get into your line of work? What would you give them as suggestions on how to do that?
I would tell them not to do it. They need to go see a shrink, find some steady work. No, it's not for the faint of heart. You're not going to get rich doing this. But if you enjoy our language, if you enjoy our heritage, if you're curious, and again, I'll say this: all of us have talent. All of us have a story anyway. If you enjoy good stories, tell them.
Yeah.
You'll be surprised. You write something for your student newspaper in high school or in college, and all of a sudden you become editor of it. People like you. Give them a chance. If that's in your, if people like Dorothy Parker and Ernest Hemingway, Maxwell Perkins, Eudora Welty, if those people have an appeal to you, think about writing. Think about broadcasting. Use David Thomas as a great example at our station. That's really what he's always done. That he's a great communicator. Communications, writing, producing, broadcasting. It's equal opportunity. It's open to all. Young people excel in that. They absolutely excel in it. I love the spirit of young Americans. It tickles me to no end. I'm not offended by their experimentation. That's the American way. We're always inventing. Sure. We're always evolving. We're always encountering resistance, but we break down barriers, and we become a better people because of it. But again, if you're looking to make money, don't do it. Marry some rich woman or rich man. Then let them bankroll you and do as you please.
Yeah.
On a more serious note, you don't know until you try.
Well, with the film industry, it's not exactly the same with, because the strike will be over soon, sometime.
I hope so.
So with the film industry here, I mean, it's got so many different opportunities for people.
Yeah, well, that's a great blessing. Of course, DeKalb has benefited immeasurably by that.
We really have.
I live near Stone Mountain, the mountain, the park, and it was such a common thing to see crews working over there, filming, making sets, cordoning off streets,
Yep.
VIP buses parked, catering tents to feed the stars, the amazing energy from there. Occasionally I would bump into Clint Eastwood one day.
Oh, doing the mule?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. There's old Clint, big guy. You never forget him.
Yeah, I've never met him or even seen him except for movies, of course. But that would be interesting. And then Pierce Brosnan, was downtown Tucker doing his movie recently. So
I got to tell you a story. Years and years and years ago, I saw Jackie Gleason, Burt Reynolds,
Smokey and the Bandit.
Yeah, Sally Field, and Jerry Reed and Tucker.
Yeah,
and they were doing one of the scenes in Smokey and the Bandit.
Wasn't that at the Old Hickory?
I think it was right down from on Main Street from Matthew's Cafeteria.
Okay, I'll have to watch that.
Right by Gopher Brothers.
I'll have to look for that in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they used Old Hickory somewhere around here, but I don't know if it's the one in DeKalb and the one in Tucker or or some other one, but they used that as well in the movie.
Yeah, it's back when there was more than one Old Hickory.
Yeah. Because I know Dunwoody used to have one.
And Decatur had one.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So we have the only one now.
That's it. And I don't know who owns the thing either, but they were good people. Barbecue's a passion of mine. It may be a passion of yours.
Love barbecue.
I have a feeling that it is.
Yes.
And it's a great passion.
Actually, on the holidays, my wife has me doing barbecue out on the smoker.
I'm working on a story right now, even as we speak, on Brunswick stew.
That's good too.
There are people are passionate about their recipes and their preferences, and that's what I like to tap into. a good friend of mine brought over his wife's recipe of Brunswick stew the other day, and I just finished that. I can't tell you how delicious that was.
Ooh, it sounds good.
And again, it's the pride in the ingredients and the technique. And there's no right or wrong way to do that. It's just your own preferences, and it clicks sometimes. And when it clicks, it really takes off.
You know, my problem is I only make chili by recipe so my wife can eat it. Everything else, I'm just a dumper and measure. I don't measure. I just kind of, oh, that looks good.
That's the Southern way.
Yeah.
A little of this, but not
Too
not
much.
too little.
Not too little, not too much.
Some of that, but not too much.
Yep. Yep. That's how I cook, except for chili for her. Well, Doc, it's been a pleasure having you on our show. You know, we really enjoy talking with you and love what you've been doing. I know we've been friends for 12 and a half years, and you've just been such an inspiration for us.
I feel like I've raised you, James. You've been a fabulous asset to DeKalb County, and I can remember when the Convention and Visitors Bureau was. If you mentioned DeKalb with that, people wouldn't know what you're talking about. You're high profile now. You're the right man for the right job. I'm proud of what DeKalb has evolved into. It's a real showpiece of excellence in my world.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for being on our show.
And thank you for giving me ideas for a new story.
Yeah, it sounds like you might have a couple, so we're excited about that. Well, thank you for coming. Thank you all for watching. Tune in to our next show.